And Gregory, great to have you with us on the show today. I suppose you've just returned from Nigeria last week. Abuja, what struck you most when you were there?
I'd say infrastructure. Infrastructure and bureaucracy are a big problem in Nigeria. And we were chatting about it, and if you look at Nigeria as opposed to other African countries that you travel to regularly, you always see progress and catch up on the infrastructure side. What I noticed severely now in Nigeria was that infrastructure just seems to be losing this battle hands down.
So the economy is growing so quickly and infrastructure just can't keep up with it, that it's actually falling behind even at a faster rate, basically.
Yeah. So never mind catching up, they're not keeping up. I mean, they can't.
Yeah. And we know that there are plans on the table to privatize the power sector, specifically. As far as I know, where it stands right now, it's been delayed by around a year. You have got pre-qualified bidders who put in technical proposals, they put in commercial proposals to try and get shares of the national power holding company in Nigeria. But overall, it's been a process of delay when it comes to that privatization of the power sector. And I suppose that is why we continue to have this backlog, because the country is still got this government controlling a key energy sector in the country.
Yes. That, in a nutshell, that's the problem. You've got these positives, you've got a very strong growth machine. So it's sort of a victim of their own success there. So you've got high GDP growth, and it's really an economy that's doing well from a growth perspective, but the infrastructure is letting them down. So power is probably most notable on the infrastructure side. There's other areas which we can talk about later, like the ports, whether you're importing, exporting, etc. But on the power side specifically, yes, the privatization is far behind, and that's just privatization of the existing infrastructure. Existing infrastructure is anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000 megawatts. I think that if you put 20,000 megawatts in Nigeria, if you put that in place within a year, that would be utilized. I mean, you're talking about an economy here which is the largest.
Will gobble up the energy that is provided, because
yes.
I mean, these diesel generators are so costly to run, and you were saying off air earlier, around 70% of energy, one would assume, is actually coming from these expensive generators.
Yes, so you've got the grid providing 30%, I mean, it's an estimate, but 30%, yeah. That's shocking, because this drives up inflation and makes you uncompetitive on international scale.
So, but what is the market perception of this? Because, of course, you're coming from a financial institution here in South Africa. Is this putting off investors?
I wouldn't say it puts them off, it's a negative, but I mean, you can't be serious about Africa and not play in the Nigerian space. So they've got this high growth, they've got a scale economy, so it's the second largest economy in Africa, will be the largest in the medium term. So you can't avoid this economy. It also offers you diversification. So although it has these infrastructure pitfalls, you still see a fair amount of interest and investment in the economy, but you're put off by the high cost of doing business. But of course, it's always a risk-return calculation, so it just means that things are more expensive.
Exactly, and as you say, the returns could be high enough to warrant taking on that risk. Talk to us about the type of focus that RMB has right now. Is power an area that you're specifically looking to invest in?
Yes, I think it's seen as an opportunity, but government needs to do a fair amount of work on establishing criteria. How will they implement this? What will the measurement criteria be? And then how will you be regulated? So medium to long-term investors are looking for certainty around that investment. So they need to, I think, move out of the bureaucracy, draft correct documentation to say this is how it will work and this is how it will be measured and this is how you'll be measured. And that way they'll attract longer-term investment.
I suppose it's around that contract. I know South Africa's been going through a process like this. If you just had to look at independent power producers and that offtake contract, do you have certainty in terms of the tariff that you will receive from governments, for example, if you are providing electricity into the grid?
Certainly, and the Nigerian market seems almost unnecessarily complicated because you have the owner of the grid, then you have distributors, and then you have generators. So you have three different parties, and even they're very diversified. So you have several distributors and several generators. But that's a smaller number in my view. So if you're looking at 4,000 or 5,000 megawatts, you still need independent power providers to come in and generate, in my view, at least 5,000 megawatts in the short to medium term.
And we're sitting with apparently right now around just over 5,000 megawatts in terms of generation capacity. But that's if you have gas supply at adequate levels. That's if you have water levels being able to feed into those hydroelectric power stations. So you're looking at perhaps a lot smaller than that right now.
I would estimate it to be somewhere between 3,000 and 3,500 actually being generated.
Let's talk to us about, you know, when you go to Nigeria, who's looking to invest? Are there investors from key economies throughout the world that you're getting a sense are looking to invest there? Is it the likes of South African companies that are particularly interested in Nigeria right now when it comes to, I suppose, the infrastructure space specifically?
Yes, I think Africa's flavour of the month. Everyone sees Africa as the growth engine globally. They want to move into this market. They also want to diversify their global exposures. And Nigeria, as I've said, it's not an economy that you can avoid. So you want to get into this economy. I think the first thing that people look at is the more shorter term. So you see your traders coming in, suppliers of goods. And then that's normally followed by people who are willing to take a medium to longer term view. But right now I see a lot of your shorter term parties and players, so importers, exporters and suppliers of trade.
Now the National Electricity Regulatory Commissioner, that's a long word for saying basically the man who looks at the whole electricity supply sector, is basically saying that the country needs on average $20 billion a year to start supplying 7,000 megawatts of capacity, and that's far below what you're saying they need right now. Do you have any figures on the table in terms of how much money needs to go into the power sector?
These are the numbers being bandied around, 10 to 20, but I'd agree on the higher side. I'd say around the 20 billion mark is what's required in the short to medium term.
So first up, before you would, as RMB, look to invest in Nigeria right now, what needs to be on the table? Because, as you say, the contracts, the legislation still isn't there.
I think RMB is happy to invest now. We are present in the country and we're growing that investment at the moment. But it's more a factor of what will help us to grow that activity at a much faster pace. And I think that is predominantly infrastructure which will drive our customer base.
Okay, but in terms of investing in the infrastructure, if you were looking to do that?
No, I think we need clear guidelines on how to invest and how that will be measured. So just some certainty. So we of course will always be backing our clients in those jurisdictions, and they'll be looking for certainty in the medium term. You know, power industry is complicated. You supply into a grid. How do you get paid? Can you capture outside of the distributor? Can you capture your incoming payments, etc.? There needs to be a little more clarity around that, I think, for people to invest in a big way.
Especially with a long-term investment. Thank you so much for coming in today.